Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
On the last day of work before her vacation, Kelly flew like she was on wings. Every now and then she squinted at her watch, adjusting the time sooner. Rather, she and Arthur were going on a romantic trip to mark the 5th anniversary of their marriage. Southern islands like special palm trees, bungalows on the beach, and endless ocean. Waiting for them, Kelly squinted at the framed photo that stood on her desk. It was a wedding photo, the happiest day of my life. In the picture, she and Arthur were so beautiful, laughing adoringly, looking at each other. Kelly, as always, admired the picture, feeling jealous of herself. Was she really the lucky one? Was this handsome, beautiful, wonderful man in every way her husband? How was it that of all the girls he had chosen her? Of course, Kelly was not ugly. She was just used to a sober assessment of her own appearance. She had no modern beauty so popular on social networks of famous bloggers and models. No tattoos, no pouting lips, no silicone in strategic places, not even on the powerful eyelash hair nails was not. All her natural figure, Kelly was thin, fragile, and graceful. Huge dark eyes on the delicate expressive face, which resembled a fawn. That's what Arthur said when he first saw her, like Bambi. Also, Kelly wore a style of short haircut, which opened up her long neck. Still, compared to Arthur, she was too plain, she thought to herself. If her husband was a beautiful swan, she was just a little darling in a box. Girls always looked up to Arthur, even if he was not alone, but with Kelly. They shamelessly made eyes at him to flirt. And more than once they tried to shove their phone number in on the sly. It was as if all those ladies didn't take Kelly seriously. Even the ring on her finger, a thin gold bezel with a dainty diamond drop, didn't make the right impression on them. Arthur had to spell it out. I am married. Besides, I'm madly in love with my wife. So excuse me, girls, but you don't stand a chance. Only after that did they turn their attention to his companion. Sweet but rather unpleasant in the face of Arthur Kelly. And in their eyes was clearly read amazement. My God. What did he see in her? Kelly once asked her husband in a forehead what he found in me Arthur hot, flashed his eyes, took her hand and gently kissed each finger. You are the whole world to me when I am with you. I don't need anyone else. Their marriage could be called almost perfect because something they lacked for complete absolute happiness, namely a child's laughter in their home and the tender bare feet of a little man on the floor. Kelly and Arthur did not have children for some reason. For the first 2 years after they got married, they did not plan to have children, deciding to live a little for themselves. Of course, relatives and friends are pressing on all sides, saying that they must not drag this out. The more so, Arthur and Kelly got married when they were no longer green, inexperienced students. At the time of their marriage, they were in their late 30s. Kelly's mother sighed and sighed, hinting that she dreamed of babysitting her grandchildren. She was unobtrusive, suggesting that it was not a good idea to delay the birth. The clock was ticking. The clock was ticking. Kelly can already be considered older, walking, and the chance of having a healthy baby as you get older is getting smaller and smaller. Kelly, on the other hand, chased such talk in a daze. As she got older, she asked back to her mom, "You make it sound like I'm about 45 years old. Believe me, it's not that late to have a baby at 30. So what are you dragging it out for?" Mom immediately picked up on it, or God forbid. "And you really want to sit until you're 45, and then it will be too late, and the baby will tie you and your husband even tighter. Childless people are more likely to leave their daughter. What are you talking about?" I got mad. After all, Kelly had already divorced me from my husband and awarded me infertility. We'll be fine. We're fine now. Don't pry into our relationship. Arthur, in general, was not against having children. Eventually, the day came when they both decided, yes, I guess it's time. For some reason, Kelly imagined that just wanting a baby would make it happen. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be that easy. Months of trying unsuccessfully for 6 months, a year. It was as if she really had been jinxed by all those advisors and well-wishers. Kelly didn't want to admit it to herself, but for the first time she was scared. Maybe her mother and all the relatives were right. Maybe she and Arthur really shouldn't have taken so long. Really, her husband only chuckled good-naturedly at her fears. Come on, it's going to work out. The baby will come when it's time, so it's just not the right time yet. Or if you want, go to the doctor, get the necessary tests, find out what the problem is. But going to the doctor didn't scare Kelly out of her mind. After all, it meant she was openly admitting there was a problem, and she wanted to cowardly pretend that nothing bad was going on, that everything would slowly get better by itself, except that it was getting harder and harder to look at her friends with kids. To avoid sympathy and anxious questioning, Kelly began to say that she and Arthur did not want children yet. It was their voluntary choice. During the day she bluffed, and at night she cried into her pillow. She was still afraid to go to the doctor. What if she was diagnosed there with a disease that would permanently destroy her hope of becoming a mother? Until the verdict was pronounced, she could continue to hope and believe. Kelly avidly read the masks and forums were inspired by the examples of women who had been unable to get pregnant for years, and then quietly gave birth to strong and healthy babies. Almost every one of them gave the same advice. You don't have to dwell on the problem, you have to relax, and then everything will work out. That's easy to say, relax. All Kelly thought about was how to get pregnant when her husband hugged and kissed her at night. She calculated in her mind whether it was a favorable day or not. Still, Kelly had high hopes for this trip to the ocean. She had heard that a change of climate often had a very positive effect on the ability to give birth somewhere. And what if it was from this vacation? She and Arthur bring the desired pregnancy. The boss, noticing that Kelly now and then furtively squinted at her elegant wristwatch, poked. You're going to get squint eyes. You think I can't see? How do you count the hours left until the end of the day? Sorry. Kelly, I'm embarrassed. Trying to control myself, but the boss just good-naturedly waved her hand. Come on, what, I was not young, or what? I know how you don't want to work before you go on vacation. In your mind, you already grab your suitcases and rush to the airport. Lying under the palm trees, you forget your fingers. In the hot yellow sand pulls up a pina colada through a tube, splashing in the azure water. Kelly, gritting her teeth, not to force from impatience. Yes, it was just like that. All right, run along. I'll let you go early. You're useless today anyway. We've spread your work among the girls and see if you can handle it. Kelly jumped up. I can't believe my ears. Really? She exclaimed. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Maria. You owe me an overseas souvenir, the boss demanded. Kelly nodded hastily. Of course. What do you want? I'll bring you anything you want. Warden suddenly ruined my face and began in a thin voice. Bring me a little flour. Kelly laughed, appreciating the joke. All right, Maria, I'll choose a gift for you. Thank you very much again. She grabbed her bag and rushed out of the office. All the way home, she continued, overwhelmed by joyful impatience and anticipation. Arthur should be home by now. His vacation had begun yesterday. He would be surprised and happy when she came back early. However, she had to be surprised when she got to the elevator to the 5th floor. Kelly ran impatiently to the door and pressed the bell. For some reason, Arthur was in no hurry to open the door for her. Kelly rang again, but still to no avail. Maybe he wasn't home at all. She thought belatedly, searching in her purse for the keys to the apartment. He didn't know I'd be out early. Maybe he'd gone to the store or something. Opening the door, Kelly nearly tripped over the woman's red-soled stiletto shoes. Wow, Kelly had never worn them, not because she couldn't afford them. She just didn't like fashion trends. She also disliked heels, preferring sturdy, durable, comfortable shoes that didn't hurt her feet. But Kelly knew exactly who this pair of shoes belonged to. Their stairwell neighbor's Jenna. But what was she doing here in the absence of her mistress? At first, Kelly thought Jenna was just dropping in for a neighborhood visit. Maybe to borrow salt or ask Arthur to nail her down. But then why was the apartment so quiet? She suddenly thought she heard muffled voices coming from the bedroom. Kelly even shook her head as if to drive away this obsession. It was nonsense what her husband and roommate could be doing in the bedroom. She really didn't understand, as if her brain had turned off its defensive response to what was happening. When did an excruciating hunch hit her? Kelly at first even brushed it off like an annoying fly. Not for a second, not believing what was happening. No, it couldn't be. All those vulgar and silly anecdotes about a wife coming home early from work to find her husband in bed with the other had nothing to do with her and Arthur. That's not how it is with them at all. They have love. Arthur would never cheat on her. And yet Kelly, despising herself for allowing herself to question the man she loved on tiptoe, crept up to the bedroom and opened the door a little, listened to the voices coming from there. The last doubts were dispelled. It really was Arthur and Jenna's voices. Husband and neighbor, no longer calling, seemed to have left with a note of alarm. My husband said, "I told you there was nothing to worry about." The neighbor stretched out lazily. "You said it yourself that Kelly wasn't at work. But then who could it be?" Nervously asked Arthur. "I'm not expecting anyone. Probably some Jehovah's Witness ad, for example." Jenna laughed huskily and languidly. "Well, what are you so worried, and Kitty? Don't be afraid. You better come to me, sweetie. Just think that now we will not see each other for 2 weeks. How am I going to survive this?" Kelly listened to all this frozen on the other side of the door and refused to believe her ears. Could it really be true? Her beloved, adored husband Arthur, whom she trusted even more than herself, sleeping with the neighbor. Was that possible? It didn't even hurt her. She was probably just short of breath from the shock. And Kelly breathed often and deeply, feeling her head spinning and floating under her feet. "How I wish I could go on this vacation with you," Arthur said dreamily, turning to Jenna. "And now I have to serve 2 weeks with Kelly." Kelly felt the blood of conscription bleed to her face. It was his way of talking about a vacation with his beloved wife, no longer lurking. She pushed open the bedroom door and stepped forward. "What else can it be fixed?" Calmly she said, and she was surprised that her voice didn't even waver. "I can get my ticket back in time and you can go with Jenna." Her roommate huffed in surprise and frantically pulled the sheet over herself to cover her bare breasts. Her husband recoiled from her at first, then stared at Kelly in fright. What are you doing here?" He finally let out a hoarse voice. "Actually, I live here, in case you've forgotten." Kelly replied, struggling to keep her composure. "And this is my bedroom, and you're my husband. But what is she doing here?" Kelly shifted her squeamish gaze to Jenna. Her roommate was looking at her with a challenge, her chin proudly tucked in. Obviously, her first shock and confusion were gone now, and she was ready to defend herself. The last thing Kelly wanted to do right now, though, was to get into a fight with her. The only thing she wanted was for that creep to get out of their bedroom, out of their house, out of their life. And Arthur, too, could go with her good riddance. Jenna was the first person they had met since moving into the new house. Kelly remembered how happy she and Arthur had been to buy this apartment. They had looked for a 3-room apartment for their future child. One of the rooms was to be a nursery. They personally did the repairs. Of course, they could have hired workers and not bother. But Kelly and Arthur were happy to do everything themselves. They say married couples get divorced when they are renovating. But that certainly wasn't the case for them. They did not quarrel even once about the color of wallpaper or bathroom design. And what fun it was to choose furniture, curtains for the living room and bedroom, dishes for the kitchen together. Finally, the finishing touches were put on and Kelly and Arthur celebrated the housewarming party in style. They invited family friends. No sooner had everyone settled around the lavishly set table than the doorbell rang. One of the guests suggested Arthur. Kelly looked doubtfully at the gathering. Everyone seemed to be assembled. Nevertheless, she and her husband went to open the door. Standing on the threshold was a strange-looking girl, a bright, showy blonde. In her hands, she held a dish with a pie. "Good evening." She said hello, smiling happily. "And you are the new owners of this apartment." Kelly and Arthur looked at each other. "Yes, and you." "And I must be your neighbors," she said. "My name is Jenna, and I'm Kelly, and I'm Arthur. Nice to meet you." Finally, young people have arrived, and it's all women around here. "I live right across the street from you, so I just dropped by to meet you and congratulate you on your housewarming. Oh, and this is for you as a sweet present from me." She handed them a deliciously fragrant pie. Kelly was at a loss to accept it from her hands. At this time, cheerful cries rang out from the room where the guests had gathered and the hosts. "But where are you there? Where have you gone? Is the booze getting cold?" Jenna pressed her palm to her mouth in embarrassment. "Do you have guests there? It's a festive feast. I'm sorry, for heaven's sake. I didn't mean to intrude on your fun. God, I'm so obtrusive and tactless. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to my room." Kelly and Arthur looked at each other. Both felt uncomfortable. After all, the girl meant well. Showing them such courtesy, came to welcome them to their new place. "Come on in, Jenna." Kelly cordially invited her in. "You won't disturb yourself at all. Please join us. Celebrating the housewarming with us." "Oh, it's embarrassing." The neighbor was embarrassed. "I don't know anyone." "You know us, and that's the main thing," Arthur said with confidence. "We're the ones inviting you, not anyone else. I'm not even dressed for the party," Jenna thought. But Kelly assured me she looked just fine. That's how the couple made Jenna a frequent guest at their house. Jenna's temper was easy. Her nature is fiery and cheerful, and Kelly enjoyed spending time with her neighbor. For some reason, she did not pay attention to the fact that Jenna never jumped in to visit. If Kelly was the only one home, she only came when Arthur came home from work. It didn't seem strange to Kelly then. Now she hated herself for being so blind. After all, it was obvious. Jenna didn't want her friendship. She immediately reached for Arthur, biting her lip. Kelly remembered all the compliments her roommate had been throwing at her husband and seemed to be saying it all to Kelly, but so loudly and demonstratively that Arthur, of course, also heard all of us so handy with that hammer and the drill. A real host man. Understandably, Arthur was pleasantly flattered by these flatterings and speeches. These praises immediately paid off his chest and made him feel incredibly cool and important. Little by little, Jenna began to exploit Kelly's young husband to her advantage. "Oh, Kelly and Arthur, it won't help me to hang a picture on the wall." "Oh, Arthur won't look at the bathroom faucet. Something's dripping." "Oh, Arthur won't change a light bulb, and he won't fix a chair leg." Arthur hung, looked, interrupted, changed, repaired. It was incomprehensible how the neighbor, and lived all this time before the prima facie, how the sick neighbor's conversation was managed. But if Kelly sensed anything strange about her neighbor's behavior, it all remained on a subconscious level. She hadn't expected Jenna to trip her up, and so seeing her in her marital bed with Arthur was a real shock. Betrayal she certainly did not expect, neither from the neighbor, much less from her beloved husband, whom she trusted even more than herself. At last, she dared not look her husband in the face. She was not ashamed in Arthur's eyes. She saw a whole gamut of emotions. One replaced the other: confusion, fear, confusion, shame, and finally anger. Why? Kelly could only silently utter, looking at the man she loved so much. Apparently, Arthur decided that the best way to defend himself was to attack. He instantly went on the offensive, not letting Kelly recover his senses or speak a word. "Why are you looking at me with the eyes of a battered dog?" He shot me a glare. "Don't tell me it came as a surprise to you." Kelly was even speechless for a moment. "Do you realize what you're saying?" At last, she struggled to get her words out. "I should have expected to catch you with your mistress in our marital bed." "Jenna, not a mistress." Cut off her husband. "She's the woman I love." "Wow, Jenna, also the woman you love." What was that all about, Kelly? She just couldn't figure it out. And yes, fervently the husband continued. "Should you have expected this outcome of our relationship? The fact that I was interested in the other one was your fault, and yours alone." Kelly, stunned. "What are you talking about?" Alan's babbling. "It's my fault you cheated on me." That's exactly how he squinted angrily. No normal man would look away if he was satisfied with his own wife. "Obviously, I'm not satisfied with you anymore." "That's how." Kelly's lips trembled. "I've had enough of you." The husband steeled. "Look at you, the way you've let yourself go. I'm you. You do not take care of yourself, no makeup. You don't wear heels. Your hair is always cut short, like a kid. You always wear jeans instead of dresses or skirts. And when she's in a cuddle, she's so sexy and feminine. He shifted his gaze to his mistress. Kelly was even nauseated with eagerness. "That's who you should take an example from," urged Arthur, not giving her a break. He didn't spare her any words. Kelly, clasping her eyes. "I wanted, in addition, to plug her ears, so as not to hear all these abominations from the mouth of the once beloved and adored man." Did he honestly believe he was right? He is convinced that he is right to make the remark to Kelly. Is this how wives get dumped because they don't wear makeup or heels? But Kelly has always been like that. It didn't come as a surprise to him. She didn't change. His tastes, on the other hand, seemed to have changed a lot. Kelly looked at her neighbor in disgust. This turned out to be who and what he liked. The Kleitsch had one-liners of beauty that are everywhere these days. Lips, eyebrows, eyelashes, hair. Has Arthur's taste become so primitive? Timoshenko, why did you tell me? Her most important murmur jerked Jenna and looked at Kelly, embracing her with coldness and contempt from under her long eyelashes. At Roshan, of course. Strangely, the neighbor acted as if this Kelly had stolen her husband from her, not the other way around. Most importantly confused, Kelly clarified, turning to her husband. "What does she mean?" Arthur was confused. "It doesn't matter," he said, but he even looked embarrassed. "Yes, it does," triumphantly exclaimed Jenna and proudly rolled on her defeated rival. "Your ex should know that." That's how Kelly, it turns out already ex-charming. She involuntarily adopted a defensive posture, crossing her arms over her chest. "And what am I supposed to know?" Jenna lifted her chin in defiance, looking at Kelly. "I'm pregnant. Arthur and I are expecting a baby with my Arthur is finally going to have a son or a daughter. What about you? You couldn't give him anything for so many years of empty light," she threw in her face. Kelly felt so hurt, like she'd been hit. She twitched involuntarily, as if she had been burned. In fact, the news really burned her. Why did Arthur sound so reproachful? Turning to Jenna, the hint in his face shook something. And in that very brief moment, he looked like the old Arthur that Kelly loved. "Why?" Jenna responded fiercely. "Let her know the whole truth. She couldn't get pregnant to give you a baby, but I could." Kelly felt like she was getting sick of them. She pointed to the door and briefly told her husband to get out. "And why does he have to get out?" Jenna concluded indignantly. "It's as much his apartment as it is yours. Maybe you should be the one to leave." Kelly looked intently at her husband. "I should leave," she clarified. Go away," picked up Jenna. "Arthur, the baby, and I are going to need a bigger place to live. You'll be too fat on your own." But at this point, her husband came to his senses, apparently, decided not to finish off poor Kelly with the apartment question. "Come on, Jenna. I can't kick her out of the house. She's registered here. Let's go to your place. We'll stay in your apartment for a while. We'll figure something out. Let's go, my love." The roommate rejected, casting another triumphant glance at Kelly, as if she wanted to finish her off. "I'll get my things later," Arthur muttered, trying not to make eye contact with Kelly. The door shut behind them, and Kelly shuddered with all her body. A large shiver pounded her. With her back against the wall, she sank helplessly to the floor. She wanted to cry, but there were no tears. First, she had to process the fact that her whole former life had collapsed, and she was now sitting on these ruins and rubble, and has absolutely no idea how to breathe now, how to go on living. Arthur had gone to the woman he loved, who seemed beautiful and attractive, who would soon bear him a child. For what? For what? Why is the world so unfair? What had she done to deserve this pain, this horror? Finally, Kelly was able to cry, and not just cry, but she howled like a woman, smearing her tears across her face and shouting something unintelligible. It was like she was trying to beat it out of her, shout out this unbearable pain, to make it at least a little easier. But it wasn't getting any easier. On the contrary, the pain was growing stronger and stronger, like puss. Kelly's first cowardly impulse was to go to the medicine cabinet, take out a pack of sleeping pills, and drink them in one gulp to end the pain once and for all. But then she was ashamed and scared. Leaving life was easy. But does she have the right to hang her death on other people? What about parents, friends, loved ones? Why should they? her second impulse was to get drunk. Kelly suddenly realized that she urgently needed to drink something strong that would work as she stays and dull her misery. Without thinking long, Kelly slipped her feet into her sneakers and hopped out to the store. Luckily, it was right nearby, right on the first floor of their house. If she had had to walk or even drive far, she just couldn't bear it. At the store, Kelly immediately headed for the shelves of alcoholic beverages. A glance at her bewildered eyes flickered over the rows of bottles. Actually, Kelly wasn't a big drinker, so she didn't know much about spirits, wine, champagne. No, that's good for some holidays. Not when your husband leaves you for his mistress liquor, cognac, whiskey. Whiskey was probably the best option. She grabbed a bottle and ran to the cash register. Unfortunately, there was a line, which, as luck would have it, moved slowly, and Kelly literally from the hall with impatience. It seemed to her that a little more, and she could not stand it, explode from nervous overexertion, finish and start smashing all around. Right in front of her was a young man with a cart full of groceries. What wasn't in there? Probably bought it all home for a family dinner. With involuntary envy, thought Kelly, I bet he had a nice big house, a loving, beautiful wife, and the sweetest children. The man leisurely put his purchases on the tape in front of the cash register. Kelly, I wanted to forget. Could you hurry? She muttered and belatedly, realizing that it sounded rather rude. Through the force added please, the young man looked at her, noting the only bottle of whiskey in her hands and red ears and eyes, and swollen from sobbing face. I can't wait, he asked squeamishly, nodding at the bottle. Kelly blinked, realizing what he'd just thought of her. What business is it of yours? She snarled. He stared at her for a moment, biting his lip, then suddenly stepped back to let Kelly pass. You go on ahead. It's faster this way. Thank you. Kelly let it out, feeling more and more uncomfortable. What did he think she was? An alcoholic who was hungover and looking forward to getting drunk again. Now it seemed to Kelly that all the customers in the store who were in line behind her thought of her that way. Even the politely on-duty smiles, the cashiers. She thought of a hidden mockery, hastily relaxing and grabbing her bottle of whiskey. Kelly rushed out of the store, but she could still see the laughter in her back for a long time. She ran into the apartment as she opened the bottle. Well, if it's an alcoholic, I don't care. Kelly carried the bottle to her mouth and greedily sipped straight from the neck. The larynx burned. Kelly choked on it, coughing, bent in half. She'd never drank whiskey before. In a gulp like that, maybe she should have had something to snack on. But at the thought of food, her stomach sluggishly spasmed. Kelly sat down right on the floor in the hallway and took another sip. This time, the cautious in her throat spilled all the pleasant heat. Just wish it would help. Just wish it would make her feel better. Just a little relief. At that moment, the intercom suddenly rang. In the silence of the apartment, it sounded deafening to Kelly. Who else could it be? She wasn't expecting anyone, no guests, no messengers. However, the caller was persistent and wouldn't leave. Eventually, this ringing bored Kelly, and she rose from the floor, but wobbled a little in her feet and went to the door. Who's there? She asked, answering the intercom. Excuse me, we saw you in the store about 15 minutes ago. The nice man's voice came over. You were in line right behind me. And then I let you go ahead of me, remember? Kelly was terribly embarrassed, surprised, and confused at the same time. What do you want from me? She asked suspiciously. And anyway, how did you find me? She sounded alarmed. You were in such a hurry that you forgot your bag at the checkout. There's your passport, your phone, your wallet. Kelly, glancing hastily around, searching for her bag, had indeed forgotten. Her mind must have completely shut down. I brought you the bag. I had to look up the address on my passport. Let me in, the man asked. How did they give you someone else's things? Kelly asked incredulously. It is not proper. Actually, you are right. It is not allowed. He sounded a little confused. But I'm a regular customer in this store. All the clerks and security guards there know me. They were sure I wouldn't cheat and would deliver the bag to the exact address. So I can go in. Or maybe you'd like to come down yourself. Kelly silently pressed the intercom button. opening the door for her guest. As he rode up in the elevator, she glanced in passing at herself in the mirror. The reflection did not please her. What a scarecrow. Kelly hurriedly stroked her shaggy hair with her palms and immediately laughed hysterically. God, what was she doing? Who was she trying to look her best in front of? Didn't she care what some complete stranger thought of her? The door opened and a young man from the store hesitantly entered the hallway. Kelly didn't get a good look at him at the time, or rather, she hadn't looked at him at all. And so now she was staring at him with moderate curiosity. He was all right though, tall, good-looking. But what did she care about that? Here you are. Her guest held out her purse. Everything is in it. You can check it. Kelly mechanically clicked the lock and peeked inside. Her head was spinning. It was very difficult to concentrate. It's all right. Thank you, she mouthed hoarsely, without even looking. I am very grateful to you. The man grabbed the doorknob to leave, but for some reason, he hesitated. A glance flashed across Kelly's face, then glanced around the apartment. Then suddenly he asked with unexpected sympathy, "Did something happen to you?" "Why would you think that?" Kelly replied, "I'm doing just fine." The man shrugged. "I don't know. At the store, I thought you were just a pathetic little drunkard. But now I see I was wrong. You are well dressed. You have expensive clothes, proper speech. Nevertheless, something compelled you to buy whiskey. That's why I'm asking if there's anything wrong with you. Maybe there's something I can do to help." The suggestion sounded unexpectedly sympathetic, and Kelly quickly went to the morgue so as not to be torn. "It happened," she nodded. "But I don't think you can help me." "No one can help me at all." The man smiled tenderly at her. "Maybe it's not so bad. Tell me, what is it to you that gets to me?" Kelly was angry. "You gave me my bag back. Thank you for that. But you don't have to babysit me. Go home to your wife and children. They must be waiting for you." The stranger's eyebrows rose in surprise. "What makes you think I'm married and have children?" Kelly was confused. Indeed, why was she so sure of that? "Your shopping cart," she remembered and blushed. It was filled to the top. "I thought you were buying food for the family dinner." The young man laughed. "You are mistaken. I live alone. A couple of months ago, my girlfriend chose my best friend over me and left him." Kelly stared at him in surprise. "Wow. And from such handsome men, it turns out, leaves." "I have a similar situation." She smiled crookedly. "A couple of hours ago, I caught my husband with another woman in our marriage bed." "You have my deepest sympathy," the guest said seriously. "It's very painful." "I know it is. And for whom did you buy all these necessities?" Kelly suddenly asked. She couldn't stop thinking about it. He laughed. "My friends invited me to the weekend at the cottage. It's my contribution to the feast: vegetables, fruit, barbecue meat." "Great," sighed Kelly. "I wish you a good rest and have fun. Thanks again for the bag." For a few moments, the stranger inquisitively looked into her face. "You know what?" he said suddenly. "Come with me." Later, Kelly herself could not answer the question of why she had agreed. She did not know the man at all. He might well have been some kind of pervert, a maniac, or a serial killer. Nevertheless, on the proposal to go with him to his friends at the cottage, she immediately blurted out, "I'll do it." Maybe what she really needed was a radical change of scenery, nothing to remind her of Arthur, of his betrayal. Here in the apartment, every single thing literally screamed his presence. His shirts and t-shirts, razors, and accessories on the shelf in the bathroom. The plume of his perfume, Kelly really wanted to get away from it all. And the invitation from a new acquaintance was just right. The only thing she said after she gave her consent: "Maybe it was time for us to get acquainted. You know, it's a little strange to go out of town at someone else's cottage with a stranger." The young man laughed embarrassedly. "I'm sorry, it had completely slipped my mind. But of course, my name is Nick. How do you do?" "Nick. I'm Kelly. Well, now we've met." The young man smiled with relief. She suddenly realized, "And it would be convenient for me to come with you. After all, no one knows me there. I'm a complete stranger. Suddenly your friends won't be thrilled." "On the contrary, they will be terribly pleased," Nick assured her. "Ever since my girlfriend dumped me, they've been dreaming of trying to match me up with someone else. Honestly, I'm sick of it. Probably afraid that I get depressed, and that's why I need to find a new couple as soon as possible. And now that they see you with me, maybe they'll finally back off. Okay, so I have to pretend to be your girlfriend." Kelly was frightened. Nick shook his head. "You won't have to do anything special. Don't worry, I won't ask you to hug me or kiss me or anything. We'll just stick together. And to my friends, if anything, I'll tell them we're at the beginning of our relationship." That must have been completely reckless. Going off with who knows where and to who knows who. But Kelly knew it was exactly what she needed right now. The trip had turned out to be truly wonderful. Kelly herself had not even expected to enjoy it so much. After what Arthur had done, it seemed to her that she would never again be able to smile sincerely, to rejoice, to laugh, to enjoy the warm summer evening, the sparkle of the river waves singing along the guitar by the fire, and the delicious aroma of oriental shashlik. At first, Nikita's friends were wary of her. They watched Kelly surreptitiously, as if they didn't know what to expect from her. But she tried to behave calmly and, of course, immediately volunteered to help set the table and cut the vegetables. So very soon she was welcomed into their circle. When the first portion of kebab arrived, and all amicably drinking their flavors with homemade wine, the mistress of the cottage even secretly whispered Kelly in her ear, "I'm very happy for Nick. He finally met a normal girl. I hope he'll be really happy with you. Take care of him, please. He deserves the best." Kelly is embarrassed, but doesn't dissuade and explains that, in fact, she and Nick barely know each other. Supporting the legend that she's his girlfriend, she only nodded reservedly. "Okay, I'll try." Nick had been touchingly and solicitously courting her all evening, bringing her the most appetizing bits of roast meat, making sure her glass was always full, if not of wine, at least of juice. Threw his jacket over Kelly's shoulders when it began to get cold. He gave her mosquito repellent. Kelly felt involuntarily admiring him for his simple, confident movements, his calmness. She felt warm and comfortable in the cocoon of his care. There was even a hint that they really were a couple. Such a man would never truly betray her. He reeked of trustworthiness, self-esteem, and hidden power. "Do you want to stay here tonight?" Nick asked Kelly. "Don't worry. There's enough room in the house for everyone. We won't have to sleep in the same bed playing couple." Kelly smiled. "Thank you, Nick, but I think I'm going to go home. I'll call myself a cab." He gestured for her to stop. "What do you want a cab for? I'll take you myself." Kelly was surprised and relieved at the same time. "But how? I haven't been drinking." Warning her, Nick said, "Not a drop. But maybe you'd like to stay with your friends a little longer?" "No, that's okay. We'd already been talking to them for a month." He waved his hand. "So don't worry, I'll get you home safe and sound." They drove along the empty highway at night to Elvis Presley music and talked about everything, about themselves, their families, their childhood, their friends, their dreams. It had been a long time since Kelly had felt so comfortable in the company of another man, not Arthur. Surprisingly, even the thought of Arthur no longer seemed so painful to her. No, of course, it didn't mean that she was willing to forgive him for cheating and turn a blind eye to it. But what had happened no longer seemed like the end of the world to her. So what if he had cheated? Was it really worth getting killed over? He wasn't the only man on earth. If he would really be better off with this soul of his, Kelly could only wish him happiness, and she herself was still young enough. She would still be sure to meet a new love, and she would certainly be happy. As the car pulled up to this house and slowed down near the entrance, she looked up at the windows of her apartment and suddenly saw that the light was on. Kelly felt cold. She knew for a fact that she hadn't left the lights on. When she'd left on purpose, she'd checked several times to see if only Arthur had the keys. So he was the one there now in the house. What if he's not alone, but with Jenna? What if they did decide to kick Kelly out of the apartment and move in here themselves? Intercepting her gaze, Nick clarified understandingly that he didn't want to go out with her husband. Kelly grabbed her shoulders with her hands and shook her head. "Honestly, I don't want to at all. I have no idea what surprise he has in store for me this time. But I've been in such a good mood all night. I don't want to spoil it. If you want, I'll go up with you," Nick suggested. I don't know what he wants you to do, but they'll see you've got people who can defend themselves. Kelly looked at him with hope and appreciation. About you, it's really not hard. I've been exploiting you unscrupulously as it is. All night long. Not hard, Nick smiled. Let's go. Arthur met Kelly on the doorstep of the apartment, confused and angry. Where do you go? Is it the middle of the night? He hissed, also left the phone at home. I couldn't even call you. And then he suddenly came to a stop when he saw behind his wife a strong and tall figure of an unfamiliar man. Who was that? He asked her in a harsh and angry tone. What is he doing here? Why is he with you? Trying to remain independent and unperturbed, Kelly shrugged her shoulders. Why should I have to tell you where I've been and with whom it's my business? And I have the right to invite whoever I want to come to my house. You're not the only one who can drag the mistress into our bedroom. So he's your lover? Arthur jumped right in. You were quick to find a replacement for me. No shame, no conscience. And you weren't ashamed to bring him here. First of all, you don't talk about people in the third person. Nick interjected, turning to Arthur. You don't seem to have any manners at all. And secondly, Kelly's right. She doesn't have to answer to you. She can invite whoever she wants to go out with whoever she wants to go out with whenever she wants. Oh, you. Angered Arthur tried to take a swing at Nick, but he deftly and quickly intercepted his arm. Take it easy. Disrespected quietly, but impressively, he warned. I'm pretty good at fighting myself. Don't go flapping your wings. Thank you, Nick. Kelly looked at the man with sincere, appreciative gratitude, and then turned her gaze to her husband. What do you want here, Arthur? Why did you come here? The husband gleamed his eyes unkindly. Why did I come? Actually, this is my apartment too. Kelly shrugged. And Jenna's your what did she kick you out for? It didn't take long for the music to play. Her ironic tone wore off. Arthur, and no one kicked me out, he muttered. I just came to get some things. So get your things and go, said Kelly. I'm tired, and I want to go to bed. Arthur got up with him again instantly. Are you going to sleep with that? None of your business, Kelly replied. Nick, in a show of support, stepped closer and put his arm around her shoulders, as if to show Arthur. Who is in charge here? It is none of your business. The husband rushed over. You are, after all, my wife. Oh, he remembered. Kelly laughed as she tumbled into our bed. I didn't think I was your wife, but don't worry, it won't last long anyway. I'm filing for divorce. Arthur drew his eyes out for a divorce. Are you serious right now? You're going to leave me that easily? Kelly rubbed her temples. She began to get a headache. The glamour of the lovely evening was slowly dissipating. It was replaced by frustration and disgust. Your mistress is expecting a child, she reminded her. We should get a divorce anyway. That you would marry this one of yours and that the child does not grow. Fatherlessness. Arthur, are you here? A cranky voice came out. Everyone turned around and saw the neighbor Jenna pouting resentfully at the door. She was looking at all the gathered company for I woke up and you were gone. She strained, turning to Arthur, while she fixed her own curious gaze on Nikita. What are you doing here? Arthur came to get his t-shirts, beacons, socks, and panties. Kelly answered in an innocent voice. Could not resist the sarcasm, but he was on his way out, really angry. She smiled sweetly at her husband. I'm on my way, he scowled, turning to Jenna. Barely a couple of lovers slammed the door, but the empty bravado immediately flew off. She leaned helplessly with her back against the wall and exhaled. I'm sorry you had to participate in this farce. And thank you for playing along. So this is your husband? Nick stretched out curiously. You know, I'm sure he's already regretted his decision to leave for someone else 100 times. She wasn't surprised. Why would you think that? Nick shrugged. I got that impression. I think if you hadn't caught the sweet couple in your bed tonight, he'd still be leading a double life. He doesn't want to divorce you at all. But now he's got his lover against the wall. He doesn't really have a choice. Kelly is a little shaky. I'm so lucky I caught them after all. It would have been horrible to live in ignorance while he was dating her. Nick grinned. He won't last long with that dame. I assure you they don't marry the likes of her, but they will have a child. Kelly reminded him. Well, maybe because of the baby. though it's not a fact that the pregnancy really exists. How's that? Kelly gasped. She could have made the whole thing up to encourage your husband to take the plunge. Maybe she hoped she wouldn't get pregnant until later anyway. God, I don't even want to think about it. Kelly squeezed her eyes shut. Meaning your husband might want to come back to you, Nick warned. I could tell he was dumbfounded by the change in his life. Would I want him back? Kelly grinned. Nick shrugged. That's another question. It's up to you. Kelly shook his head sharply. Never for anything. Traitors are not forgiven. Nick smiled. I thought so. You're a very brave, self-sufficient, and combative girl. I'm sure you can handle it. Thank you for the 100th time tonight, said Kelly. Honestly. Before I met you, I really didn't want to live. I even thought I'd take pills. Crazy. Nick gasped. Don't be afraid. I won't think such a foolish thought again. Kelly reassured me. Thanks to you, I lived. You know, just one night with you. And I don't feel humiliated or miserable or cheated anymore. Well, since I'm such a great guy. Why do you get me a coffee? Nick asked. I'm tired today. I wouldn't want to fall asleep at the wheel. I told you you shouldn't have taken me. Kelly gave a sorrowful shrug. Where are you going now? So tired? Look, she perked up. You can stay at my place till morning. It's a big apartment. At least you will have a good rest. Nick didn't try to deny it. Thank you, he said. I will gladly accept your offer. Frankly, I only want to sleep in the shower. I'll get you a clean towel. And for the style of the bed, promised Kelly. Yes, and I'm in your presence would be somehow more relaxed. Arthur, on the other hand, could not sleep until morning. He studied the bed from one side to the other. And in the end, even Jenna could not stand it and howled. Well, what are you always jumping for? Jump and come back, keeping you awake at all. Eventually, Arthur spat and went into the kitchen. There he opened the window and nervously lit a cigarette. His insides were full of rage. But wow, the man was dragged into the house by his wife, his Kelly. It didn't take long for her to fight back and get bored alone. It wasn't even a day after he left. Frankly, the swift move to his roommate's apartment stunned him himself. Arthur didn't even have a moment to recover. He certainly wasn't going to leave Kelly. He was perfectly happy with everything. What was wrong with that? At home, his wife was a bit boring, familiar to the hell out of him. But at least she was his own. And in the next apartment, lover young, hot, passionate, beautiful. With her, he felt like a real Superman. But at the same time, his life with Kelly was quite satisfactory to him. What he had said to her in the heat of the moment after she had caught them was just out of anger and out of confusion. With Jenna, it all started at her initiative. One day, she approached Arthur with a traditional request to either hammer a nail or tighten a faucet. Kelly wasn't home. Arthur went to his neighbor's apartment with the tools, and before he knew it, she had thrown off her already too short, provocative robe and pressed her whole body against him. How could he resist? He was only a man. A man. And Jenna is a young, beautiful girl, very effective. His wife was a far cry from such defiant beauty. Kelly's appearance was more modest, not flashy. Of course, the attention of the femme fatale beauty Jenna flattered Arthur. Their romance developed rapidly and impetuously, but still. At the same time, he continued to love his wife and did not even think of divorcing her. Jenna intuitively felt that her lover was not too strongly attached to her. She constantly demanded declarations of love from him. I don't know when you're going to tell your mummy. He made up 1,000 reasons and excuses, but Jenna couldn't keep up. Arthur had regretted getting involved in this forbidden relationship 100 times. It was easier for him to break up with Jenna than to leave his wife. But she, sensing that Arthur was about to get off, resorted to the last resort, announcing that she was pregnant. There was no point in waiting for everything to work itself out. Something had to be done. And it just so happened that Kelly caught them with Jenna. He had come home early from work and had said too much to her out of shame and anger. He was disgusted with himself, especially when he remembered Kelly's huge, pained, frightened, childlike eyes. Jenna, on the other hand, was triumphant, celebrating her victory. When they left for her apartment, she suggested we celebrate somehow, to celebrate. Arthur wasn't in a very festive mood, but he agreed nonetheless. and now it turned out that Kelly was also having an affair. Arthur remembered that tall, strong man who had been with her in their apartment and clenched his fists as hard as she could from the experience. He even felt like eating the remnants of their stock and feast on the kitchen table. She ordered home-delivered meals to celebrate under dry can't drive and a slice of pizza and rolls. Arthur looked squeamishly at the dirty plates and the sauce stains and crumbs on the table. And because Jenna had gone to bed, without even thinking to clean it all up. Kelly, for instance, never went to bed if the dishes were dirty. Overcoming his disgust, he shipped the leftovers from all the plates into the trash can and put them in the sink. Still hungry, he opened the refrigerator door, but there was nothing of interest there. A slice of moldy white cheese and yellowed bunches of herbs. What a swine. Why should he be surprised, though? Jenna immediately told him she didn't like or know how to cook. Wait, he wondered. What about that pie you brought us for the housewarming party? It was delicious. I remember we ate it with the guests. Jenna laughed and flicked him on the nose. It was a pie from a nearby pastry shop. It was probably silly to compare it to Kelly's. And it was too late. But Arthur's mind was suddenly filled with memories of the soup, their cutlets, and the pies Kelly had made him. She was a wonderful hostess, and he seemed to have done a terrible, foolish thing and missed her. Life with Jenna and turned out not to be sugary at all. The girl was horrible and messy. And not just in the kitchen, there was a layer of dust on all the furniture surfaces in the rooms. The floors were almost never washed. Candy wrappers, chocolate tangerine wrappers, and peels on the coffee table were lying under the couch. The greasy and sticky stains of the cups darkened inside Jenna didn't even think to clean them. The linens hadn't been changed in what seemed like months. Arthur was used to the fact that with Kelly, their home was always clean and comfortable and orderly. But he did not even think about whose power it was to keep it in order. It seemed to him that everything happened by itself, and the shining whiteness in the bathroom and the clean clothes, the pleasant smell of linen conditioner, and delicious healthy breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. Now he had to do his own laundry and cooking. He did the dishes too. Jenna, however, only laughed at his efforts. You don't have to go to all this trouble. Hair. Told you not to put food on plates you could eat directly from the containers. Since Jenna hardly ever cooked food, she always ordered takeout from cafes and restaurants, and used a fork or even her hand to get into the disposable containers. She didn't want to dirty the dishes unnecessarily. Arthur was disgusted by this and stubbornly shifted his food into the homemade dishes, to which Jenna only pouted and declared that she wasn't going to wash at all. She wasn't going to do anything at all, apparently. Before that, she had worked as a manicurist in some salon. But after Arthur moved in with her, Jenna completely stopped going to work. When he wondered why she just can't see behind Arthur's pretty sweet eyes, but why should I? To hunch over such a small salary. If you make good money, your salary will be enough. That kind of blatant cynicism swayed him. But Jenna, obviously sensing that she had overreached herself, immediately hurriedly added, "Besides, during pregnancy, it's bad for a woman to breathe in all those solvent paints. I don't want to hurt our baby's glass, you know." This Arthur could understand, and had to agree that it's better for Jenna to stay home. "By the way, what about your pregnancy?" he asked. "You've already checked in. You've had an ultrasound. Everything's normal. The baby is developing as it should." Jenna's eyes flickered. "I just made an appointment with my gynecologist today." She called back. "I'll go with you," Arthur said. Jenna turned pale. "Why?" "Well, I'm curious. After all, it's my first baby," he said. "Now, I hear they let fathers in for ultrasounds. And they do," Jenna nodded. "Only my clinic has very strict rules. I'm not sure you're allowed to come in with me. Besides, you can see the restrictions everywhere now." Arthur sighed disappointedly. "All right. Then let me at least drive you to the clinic." "What time is your appointment be?" 10:30 a.m. "You'll probably be at work by then?" Jenna asked hopefully. "That's okay. I'll be a little late for the occasion." He brushed it off. Jenna's behavior seemed more and more suspicious to him. That was why he decided to find out if she was telling him everything true about her pregnancy. They left the house together, got into Arthur's car, and Jenna gave him the address of the clinic. He drove her to the place. And once again, he clarified, "Are you sure they won't let me in there?" Jenna nodded fervently, absolutely sure. He followed the couple as they entered the clinic. A young woman with a visibly noticeable belly, and beside her a man who carefully supported her under his elbow. But this couple, for example, came in together, Arthur noticed. "Oh, and they won't let him go any further than the reception anyway," said Jenna convincingly, sincerely. Well, I shouldn't wait for you here at the entrance." She blurted out quickly, "I don't know how long I'll be. First to the gynecologist, then to the ultrasound. Then I'll probably have to take a bunch of tests. I'll get there myself, Arthur, by cab." "All right," he nodded. "Take care of yourself." Jenna jumped out of the car, waved him off, and hurriedly kicked her heels in the direction of the entrance to the clinic. Arthur started the car, pretending he was going to drive away. In fact, he only drove a little to the side so as not to be seen. He had to make Jenna believe that he had driven away, stopping a little ways away so that he could see the entrance to the clinic perfectly. Arthur prepared to wait patiently. The wait was not long. After about 5 minutes, the door opened, and Jenna poked her nose out of her neck and looked around cautiously, obviously checking to see if she had gone quickly with all her examinations and tests. Thought Arthur. In his rage, he hated being taken for a fool. Meanwhile, Jenna, not finding his car, immediately started poking at the phone, obviously opening a cab app and ordering herself a car. Another 10 minutes later, the ordered cab arrived. Jenna shoved herself briskly into the front seat, and the car sped away. Arthur started the engines, moving just far enough behind them not to be seen. Oh, Jenna had to be nervous today. Arthur suddenly announced that he wanted to go with her to the clinic for appointments and to be present for the ultrasound. Jenna almost died of horror that he was about to find out the whole truth. Fortunately, she was able to pull herself together and successfully got out of it by lying that this clinic does not allow husbands to appointments. He seemed to believe it, though surprised. True, he volunteered to drive her to the place. Here she could no longer refuse. That would have been too suspicious. Jenna had to go inside for no appointment. No gynecologist, of course, she had no appointment. But there was no way Arthur was going to find out about it. At the clinic, she asked where the bathroom was. She looked in there, fixed her makeup in front of the mirror, and then went to the exit to the row. Part of her looked outside, but Arthur's car was gone. Thank God, gone. Jenna exhaled in relief and laughed. She opened the cab app. She urgently needed to unwind and distract herself. She had been so stressed out. And today, already sitting in the car, Jenna dialed her best friend's number. "Honey," I said. She piped up. "How about we get together, have some fun, and have a drink?" "It's a little early for a drink," the friend grinned. "It's not even 12 p.m. yet. Or do you have something to celebrate?" "I have money," Jenna grinned. "Isn't that an occasion?" "All right," agreed her friend. "Let's go to our favorite cafe karaoke in 40 minutes. We'll drink some champagne. Let's go out." "Deal," Jenna responded cheerfully. A meeting with her friend was exactly what she needed right now. Molly could look at the situation soberly and tell her what to do next. What to do? The waiter brought them champagne and left. "Well, honey, here's to us, to the meeting." Jenna raised her glass. They drank, and then Molly stared at her with a standing stare. "So tell me, what's up with you?" Jenna looked confused. "What makes you think something's wrong?" Jenna laughed. "I know you like the back of my hand. Is there a problem with that guy you were telling me about a few weeks ago?" "No, we have Arthur, and he's fine." Jenna smiled. "He finally told his wife about us and left her for me." "Oh, really?" "Seriously." His eyes rounded small. "What a man, I respect that. Usually these assholes hide their mistresses to the last minute and aren't going to divorce their wives." Jenna didn't elaborate on the fact that Arthur had only gone to her because his wife had caught them. If it weren't for that circumstance, it's not a fact that it would have happened so soon. "So what is the problem?" Molly clarified. "If he left the family for you and everything is fine." See, I was embarrassed to admit it, and Jenna dropped her eyes. "I lied to him about being pregnant." Molly gasped. Champagne coughed. Jenna waited patiently for her to let go. Finally, her friend stopped coughing and stared at her with a shocked look. "Are you kidding me?" "No," sighed Jenna. "But God, why would you do that?" "I don't know why I did it. I guess I just wanted to tie him down even more with the news. He and his wife were never going to have kids. I'm an idiot." Jenna covered her face with her hands. "And now I have no idea how to get out of it. Arthur could find out the truth at any moment, and then I'd be in trouble. You have no idea how much he wants to have a baby." Crayon drummed his fingers on the table. "Look, but there are only two ways out of this." "What kind of things?" Jenna asked hopefully, staring into her friend's face. "The first is to lie about having a miscarriage, but it takes a lot of acting. You have to act out the tragedy, the sobbing, the killing, the wringing of your hands, the general anguish, and the universal sorrow, to make him believe you're sincere." Jenna grinned, and the other Molly smirked. "Easy as pie. You need to get pregnant for real." "How's that?" Dumbfounded Jenna. "Don't you know how it works? Babies are faked by her friend." "No, of course I do. I just haven't thought seriously about it yet," Jenna admitted. "I don't think I'm ready to be a mother yet. All those diapers, teeth, burping. Ew, I'm throwing up right now. I'm on the pill so I don't get pregnant." "But you want to keep that man by your side judiciously," Molly remarked. "I do," Jenna nodded. "Then you have to make sacrifices or he'll leave you. Just like he left his wife." "Yes, but you should have seen that wife. The same one had Jenna's mousse in surprise. Not her skin, not her face. He got tired of her a long time ago. I'm different. He's fine with me." "Strangers' families are dark," Molly shrugged. Something had kept them together, hadn't it? Jenna didn't have time to object. Her cell phone rang. Glancing at the screen, she muttered to Arthur, "Just why is he calling? He thinks I'm at the clinic right now. So tell him you're in the clinic." I encouraged her Molly. "You're not being nice, you're just being nice. Act calm and natural. Otherwise, he'll figure you out." Jenna answered the phone. "Yeah, sweetie. How was your checkup? What did the doctor say?" Arthur's voice was harsh and curt. Jenna gleamed nervously, her lips dry. Everything's fine. I'm still there for a few more tests to take." "Tests, then," repeated Arthur meaningfully. Jenna didn't like his tone at all. "But what is it?" she said capriciously. She stretched. "Tell me," said Arthur suddenly. "Pregnant women should not drink alcohol, right?" Really confused, Jenna nurtured. "Why do you ask?" "Because I don't understand why the hell are you drinking champagne with your girlfriend?" Abruptly, Arthur said. Jenna felt herself breaking into a cold sweat. "Why would you?" she started, and then she caught it. Their table was right by the window. Jenna saw through the glass that Arthur was standing on the other side of the sidewalk with his phone in his hands, staring intently right at her. He noticed that she had detected it and grinned angrily. "So Jenna, don't you want to explain it to me somehow?" "I'll explain it all to you." Feverishly, she muttered, trying to figure out how to get out of it now. "The thing is," she squinted at the shallow and desperately blurted out, "I had a miscarriage, such an unfortunate thing. And I had just found out about it, and I pretended to sniff my nose as if I could barely hold back tears. So unfortunate that I decided to celebrate with my girlfriend." Arthur's voice sounded quiet, but she could clearly hear it carefully restraining my rage. "Don't take me for an idiot, Jenna. Those jokes don't work on me." "Arthur," cried Jenna, bursting into tears for real. "I love you so much. Believe me, honey, I can't live without you. But I can without you." Abruptly, he put her down. "What kind of a fool have I been? God, how could I have fallen for your cheap tricks and artificial charms? Don't leave me, please," squealed Jenna. "It's over between us," said Arthur tiredly, "over Jenna forever. Don't try to change that. I'm not coming back." He dropped the call and turned around and walked to his car. Jenna watched him walk away through the window of the cafe and could not stop the sobs. "Well, calm down." Stunned by everything that happened, Molly stroked her hand. "It looks like you urgently need another drink." Turning to the waiter, she asked for more champagne, please. Kelly hurriedly staggered toward her driveway. She had so much to do. Suddenly, someone blocked her way. Kelly looked up and was surprised to see her husband, or rather almost ex-husband. She had filed for divorce after all. The process was underway. "Hello, Kelly," he smiled ingratiatingly. "You look wonderful." "Hello, Arthur. It's cold," she replied. "What do you want?" "Just wanted to see you," he muttered. "Missed you." Kelly shook her head. "But I missed you." "Unfortunately, I can't say the same about you. I barely remember you." Arthur nodded understandingly. "Of course you are offended and you are angry. That's why you say that to spite me." Kelly raised her eyebrows in surprise, resentful, angry. "Not at all. Yes, at first I was really offended because you hurt me so much. But believe me, that's long in the past. I don't care at all now. I don't think about you or miss you. I don't care how you are, where you are, or who you are with." Arthur frowned. "I don't believe you. You're the one lying to me out of spite." Kelly wearily brushed it aside. "Do you think you want to? Now please let me pass. I have a lot of business between me and it's over." Triumphantly, Arthur blurted out as if it were his last trump card. "I left her. Are you glad?" Kelly shrugged. "I told you, I don't care at all. In fact, I don't have time to talk to you. I'm going on vacation to the ocean, Arthur was surprised. Apparently, he remembered that he and Kelly were just about to fly to the ocean, and then she caught them with Jenna, and they had to forget about the vacation. "Well, yeah," Kelly nodded. "And you're holding me up. Let me get through. But it's better to go on vacation as a couple," Arthur said curtly, trying to hold her hand. "It's not as boring as going alone. Don't you agree with me?" "I do," grinned Kelly. "But what makes you think I fly alone?" Arthur looked confused. "And what about it?" "With whom then? I do not understand." "You explain yourself," he demanded. Kelly laughed, laughing loudly from the bottom of her heart. "Who do you think you are? Aren't you taking too much on yourself? What right have you to demand anything of me? Now let me pass." She firmly pushed him aside and walked to the entrance. At that moment, her phone rang. Kelly looked at the number, and a happy, loving smile flashed across her face. "Yes," she answered. "Yes, I'll be ready soon. I can't wait to see my sweetheart soon either." Kelly did not yet know that very soon fate would give her a long-awaited pregnancy. Not by Arthur, though, but by another man, Nick, who had become her true love and the only one. That's right, they say, everything has its time and its own kindred man.